Jurassic Park here. He's a bit pissed off. Good afternoon, welcome back to the channel. Chris's build part 4, I think it is. I think we're on part 4. Whoa, I'm not going to show you in there because we have sort of progressed now with Chris's car. So this is just quite a bit of a boring video. I do apologise for that. It's just about the timing of the engine and some other things. Anyway, hope you enjoy it. Let's get it. And there we go. So now we're going to have good pressure going to that rail, which is going to help us maintain that rail pressure under wide open throttle. So if you haven't done that, get it done. As you can just see, we've blended. I'll smooth that off now. I'm not sure if it's going to show on camera. Just need to sand these little chunks out, but that is what we want. So now we know a smooth entry for the fuel and air into that intake. Yeah, it's taken a while. This head's got to go back for a wash now, and then Dave's going to build it again, but it's worth doing, isn't it? Okay, so we've got Chris's auxiliary bracket here. So it's the bracket that houses the oil filter, along with the pressure switches and whatnot. So we're taking this off because we have got his oil cooler. This is a takeoff plate oil cooler, and it basically replaces this heat exchanger. So what we're going to do is take this off. We've got new gaskets, got pressure switches here. I have just ordered a new so this is a piston cooling nozzle, so this is an early revision, so I have just ordered it's coming tomorrow, a new revised version of it. So we'll fit that tomorrow. So yes, I'm just going to strip this down, fit this new one, this takeoff plate, and show you everything in regards to how this system works. So let's crack on with that. So this is basically where oil is cooled by coolant. So this part goes into your water or thermostat to the water pump, where it circulates coolant here and obviously cools the oil before it gets distributed to the engine. There's a key component in here that we're just going to check out before we fit this, and it is all to do with piston cooling. So on the block underneath the pistons you have piston cooling jets, and on these vehicles they are turned on and off, and they're activated by this solenoid, and there's a relief valve in here which we need to check out and make sure it's working properly. So there we go. So that's where the oil goes in, that's where the coolant goes in, and circulates around here, but we won't be using that anymore. So what I'm after, or what I'm going to look at now, is this. If we can get it out, with a flathead screwdriver for that. So yeah, so this is basically a valve that allows oil into the piston cooling channel. So all we need to do is just check there's no resistance. That's good, that's nice and healthy. So obviously, yeah, if there's an issue with this, I'm just going to clean this out actually. If there's an issue with this, once it's on the car, if you've got oil pressure switch 3 malfunction, typically that is, I mean, oil pressure switch 3, which is a green pressure switch, that monitors piston cooling oil pressure. So obviously oil goes in here, you've got the piston cooling valve, which basically sends oil through this passageway, through this valve, out through here, and then I can just show you on the block. Yeah, so through here, goes through this gallery, where it's monitored by this oil pressure switch 3, and then it's distributed to the 4 piston nozzles under the piston to cool the pistons with oil. So yeah, so it's critical that we check this before it all goes back together. So yeah, I've just given it a clean in the inside. Now this gasket is actually alright, but because of this build, we were replacing all the gaskets and seals. So we've got a new gasket here. And making sure our piston relief valve goes in with a click. And then this takeoff plate, as I said, basically replaces the stock heat exchanger. You see there's 2 chamfered bolts which go there. And now we're just going to tighten that down. And because the chamfered should pull the plate into position. There we go. So that is that fitted. I'm just going to check, make sure these are tight, because I have had a cooler before where we fitted it and someone from the factory or the assembly had forgotten to tighten them. As you can see, they are nice and tight, and we've got a different size again. Of course we've got a different size. There we go. Then lastly, make sure we've got a seal on the bottom. I'm just going to nip that up, and then we need a 27mm spanner to just give that a good tighten. Okay, so that's on. So now we're just going to torque these up. I won't show you that because you know what a torque wrench is, don't you? And then just to keep this clean and clear before we get an oil filter, close this off. There we go. All done. And then lastly, while we're here, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to replace this oil pressure switch 3. So this is his old one. I have seen these fail once or twice, and because they are under the intake and between the water pump, they are a twat to get off. So I said to Chris, I'm just going to replace this one with a brand new one, so we know it's new, and hopefully we won't have an issue with that, because yeah, it'll be a royal pain in the arse. Well, it has been an interesting afternoon to say the least. We're just putting the APR head studs on now. Cylinder head's ready to go on. It's all been built up. I have just obviously installed this takeoff cooler. I have left this loose, and stupidly I've put the water pump on. I mean, I needed to put it on because I need to see where to route these lines that aren't going to foul anywhere. Now I've just mocked up, because Chris wants aircon back on this car, so this is a pump we've supplied him. And obviously we've got 2 bulbous lines here, so these position of these at the moment, you can see they are going to come into contact. So again, it's not straightforward as just bolting things on. We need to think not only about separating the lines and keeping them free, but making sure the lines aren't going to knock and rub against anything whilst they're in the car, because obviously they'll fatigue over time, and the last thing you want is a hole in your oil line. So yeah, so we're just putting the cylinder head on, and this engine will be more or less complete by the end of the day, touch wood, if nothing else delays us. So yeah, we're just going to torque this down. We'll show you the cylinder head all nicely bolted on, and then we can get on with the putting the cams in, doing the timing and top cover on. So let's do that. Right, so engine is more or less built. Dave's just collapsing the tappets. We're just going to run and clean these journals and then get some assembly lube on there. So I'm going to install the exhaust cam. Now with these engines, you shouldn't and you can't really install the camshafts on the cylinder head and then put the rocker cover down. The reason being, this camshaft has variable lobes. So we've got high lift and low lift, and these basically have to be set with the camshaft adjusters. So the camshaft must be placed in the rocker cover and then set. So I'm just going to get my little timing arrow. And what we have to do is basically set these lobes. So this one wants to come in. It's basically this one, this lobe needs to touch this journal. This one wants to touch the back of this journal. Then this one wants to touch the back of that journal. And then that one wants to touch the back of that. So yeah, you can't just put this camshaft on the cylinder head. It has to be set in this rocker cover. And then what I'm going to do now is go around, put some sealant on, and then when Dave's put the lifters in, we can then place this cam and the rocker cover on the cylinder head, and then start our timing. And here is my least favourite part now. So that is our cams all on. So I don't know if you can see, there's two little teeth here. I always put them just slightly inwards because we want a bit of slack here in the chain in the middle. And you'll see why, because when I come to put this tensioner rail on, I just want to be able to pull that back and catch that slop. So yeah, so we're just going to do the main timing now. So we've got our main timing chain here. This is had a good old soak. And what we're going to do is basically drape it on the end of the cams and just get it in position to where we want it. So there is an arrow here, don't know if you can see that. That is the link, where the link's going to go. And then we've got one tab here, one tab there. And as I said, you can't really get this wrong as long as those links match up. You know, when you're talking correctly, you're at top dead, which we know we're at top dead. We've got a flat point here, and obviously we set these the other day at top dead. So yeah, so it's pretty easy to do. They're not hard engines at all. Anyway, let's crack on. So let's get around the bottom, and then we want this one on here. And we should be 9 links apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And on the bottom, I don't know if you can see, but we're just on there. So that's fine. This is where it becomes tricky, because this guide that we're going to put on now, it's a bit of a twat to get on. And again, this is the revised guide, so we've got this loop, little elbow here that obviously keeps the tension on the chain. But yeah, this can be sometimes quite a tricky guide to get on. So yeah, we are going to go back and check the torque on them two, but we're just going to check our link underneath. You can just see we're on the coloured link is on the arrow. I don't know if you can see that. So now we just need to do the tensioner side. Now the tensioner needs to bolt here, but it will foul this. So this is why I've left slop here. So the next thing we're going to do is put a guide on there, because we're going to need to pull this, take this off and pull this slop and bring it in. So again, a revised part. We've got a lip there, which obviously helps keep the chain on. In the case of a slack chain, stops it jumping off. So now we're going to get this guide on up here, and as I said, we have to take this off to take this slop up, and then we'll be able to get our guide in place. My cameraman's gone now, but basically we get this in place like so, and you can see I just moved then just enough. Let's get that in place. So just double check again, we've got a link there, link on the top here, link there, so we know these are in time, and we know it's going to be in time with the crank. So we just got to get a tensioner on now. So I'm just going to gently nip these up. These are 20 Newton meters. So yeah, one last check. We've got a link there, links on there. This slack we're going to take away when we take this off and we do our first rotation. So a lot of people do this afterwards, but I always, once I'm happy, take that off. And then back to 30 Newton meters. There we go. So yeah, I forgot to say, this is Louis' block, which has been freshly painted and cleaned. And what we're doing now, we've just got to set his head up, new valve stem seals, get his pistons in. There's his pistons, got his crank and his rods. So yeah, it is a fairly lengthy process to get it looking like this anyway, because obviously these all come in all rusted. However, so Chris is now, this is a common issue we see, and I see it quite often on the forum as well, when people have done a timing chain job, and straight away they get, when the engine gets hot on idle, it gets a low oil pressure light warning. It's because of two things. So the spool valves that go in here, which we'll go on to a bit later, they have to be torqued to 35 Newton meters exactly. If they're too tight or too loose, you're going to get oil pressure issues. But the main reason I'm pointing these out now is because the actual cam bridges themselves, they are a bearing. So I always recommend using a new one, because it's not always easy to tell if they're going to cause you an issue or not. Just grab them. Oh Christ, let me open this with one hand and go. Not always easy to tell that this bearing surface in here, they get scored, and it's not easy, but always easy to tell if they're going to be an issue or not. So best practice for us is to just replace the cam bridge. I mean, at least then you know it's new. So yes, we're just going to lube these journals, get this cam bridge on, and then we can put all the timing covers on. You just see it pulling that shim in. Now these, unlike the older generation treble 8s, they don't have that nasty oil screen. They used to fail and clog up your VVT, so you don't have to worry about that. But what you'll see when you tighten these up is this will slowly move towards the cylinder head and get the cams in position. See how my GoPro overheated. So I've just put the spool valves in. Now these, I always keep these soaked in oil. So this is what your cam adjustment magnets do. And I'm not sure you're going to see this, but you can just see how it opens and closes and directs and diverts oil pressure to the phasing of the cams. So yeah, really important that these are torqued to 35 Newton meters. So you do need a torque wrench that's reversible. So we're going anti-clockwise because these are left-handed thread. So that is going to be tightening. We're just going to get these to 35 Newton meters. Really critical you do that, because as I said, you will have oil pressure issues if you do not torque these correctly, so be warned. So this is his upper timing cover, and as I mentioned in the previous video, we're going to replace this gasket because these are typically what leak. We have got a new one in the box there, and then we're going to replace these rubber seals as well. So I can't really do that with one hand. So I'm going to replace them, and then we can put that on the top. But just before we do that, because we've now got everything timed up, torqued up, just going to do a couple of rotations. The crank, we haven't got plugs in, so we won't have compression. So it's always easier when you obviously don't have compression, and plus the injectors are out as well. So yeah, we're just going to rotate it a few times, make sure we're happy with the timing before we put the lower cover on the oil pump chain, which is just there, and then that can all be sealed. So oil pump's going on. And once this is on, we can put our oil pump chain tensioner on, and then the timing cover can go on. So I'm going to put the camera down now because I really need two hands. Put this guide on, flip it back over, and then we can put the lower timing cover on the upper timing cover, and then that is done. So yeah, I'm just going to torque this up. So yeah, so this spring has to go behind there, and we tighten this up. And once we've got it in position, pull our tensioner off, and that is the whole time in the oil pump. All done, so all the covers can go back on now, and we can get on with the intake and the turbo and whatnot. And there we go, we're all timed up, ready to build up. Just got to put his camshaft adjusters in. A bit more work to do on the oil cooler, but yeah, you can see the porting we did. So we're happy with that. Chris is going to be happy with that as well. So yeah, good day. So yeah, so if you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. The more subscribers we get, the more content like this we'll do. Plenty to come on Chris's build in the next couple of videos. Lots more stuff to do. It's such a complicated build. But anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. So this has been fun. So yeah, we've got a new silicone pipe which is supplied there. As you can see, brings it down perfectly. So now we can bolt this on, so that's secure. Clears the aircon nicely. Now I've just got to route these pipes. So you see I've just made this clip, which is obviously bolted to the block and sheathed with some silicone, because we want to get these lines, these oil lines, right up tight, because the thermostat's going to go there, and obviously ground clearance, we want that as tight as possible. So Chris isn't going to have any issues. So probably what I'm going to do is secure it actually to this pipe, because that'll be bolted, that'll be secure, and I'll just keep them, I can twist this, you see, I'll just keep them nice and out the way. But yeah, ball ache to say the least. So this has got to come back off. I mean, I need to take this off anyway, because we've got a much larger cooler, which again, probably gonna have to mount from the top, because we're going to connect it from the bottom, because it will come to about here, leaving us very tight in space. So that is going to be fun. Anyway, yeah, it's not a straightforward build, this, like I said from the start, but we want this absolutely as perfect as possible, so it takes as long as it takes.